Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for February 4th, 2019. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the matters pertaining to the employment history of particular individuals and contractual negotiations?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for February 4th, 2019. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by Hope, James, and Juliet, and then remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces and those in our community who have lost loved ones, especially remembering the parent of Yorktown students, Mr. Amir Tercios, and the grandparent of Barbara Nairati.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to start with good news, and it looks like we have a room full of Crampon students tonight,
Yes.
Dr. Hatter.
I am so excited that we have some of our fourth grade students from Crampon School here, our New York State School of Character, Crampon School here tonight. So at this time, I am going to call Dr. Roberts to the podium to address the board and to address our community as we hear about our students analyzing poetry through their e-STEAM lens. Dr. Roberts?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Hatter, Mrs. O'Shea, Mr. Cole, Mrs. Carbone, Mr. Mignani, and Board of Education trustees. We are honored to be sharing Crampon School's good news with all of you this evening. Our goals are always centered on highlighting how our work is focused on the Board of Education goals as outlined in the district's 2020 vision. As a national district of character, and just last week, yes, Crampon was honored to receive the recognition of a New York State School of Character. We are committed to the importance of character education and how our actions, our words, and our deeds impact others. This year, a wealth of our work has centered on strengthening our emotional intelligence, most specifically building greater emotional self-awareness, whereby one feels comfortable to share their feelings and discussing activities, situations, and interactions that cause one to feel the way they do, which promotes our district's focus on empathy. A few weeks ago, our Google and Apple trainer and webmaster, Mrs. Burns, excitedly came to see me to share our newest acquisition of iPads, which incorporated drawing tools, apps, and GarageBand. We spent some time discussing a presentation she attended where this tool was used to interpret poetry from an empathetic lens, hence building good character. During our conversation, our minds were racing on ways we could integrate this great tool into our e-STEAM work while enhancing the curriculum and providing students and staff greater learning opportunities. I immediately picked up the phones, and the teachers can certainly justify this, and asked to meet with several teachers, Mrs. Columbos, Mrs. Green, Miss Celestri, Mrs. Richards, and of course, Mrs. Burns. During our time together, there were many questions, but a room filled with educators who were eager, nervous, and ready to take on a new challenge to enhance learning for our children and for one another. The work to be presented this evening is generated from our innovative and devoted educators who are committed to the principles of e-STEAM, as well as students who embrace new technology to interpret poetry from an e-STEAM lens. When Mr. Avdek and I visited the classrooms during the learning journey, students and staff were engaged, collaborative, and most importantly, eager to learn. The students in 4 Columbos and 4 Green worked on analyzing poetry and creating presentations through an e-STEAM lens. The students read and analyzed poems studied in the Love That Dog unit. After reading and interpreting the poetry, students decided on what mood what tone they felt the poems evoked. With the help of Mrs. Burns, Mrs. Celestri, and Mrs. Richards, the students created video presentations using clip apps, Google Images, and iPads. Their videos convey the mood and tone of the poem to the viewer through music, art, and technology, as well as their understanding of tone with their own voices. Brian Herbert stated, "The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill, and the willingness to learn is a choice." Our children and staff were partners in learning, and they took the choice to take this journey together. We proudly present our students along with Mrs. Columbos, Mrs. Green, Mrs. Richards, Ms. Celestri, and Mrs. Burns.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mrs. Columbos. This is Mrs. Green. We are all proud to be here with our fourth graders from Crampon to showcase their poetry project. As Dr. Roberts stated, this was truly a collaborative e-STEAM project in which several teachers from different areas came together to support our learners in creating multimedia presentations. We feel strongly that collaboration among staff is such a great example for our students, helping them to be more collaborative and empathetic individuals. Mrs. Green and I had set a goal for this year of integrating more technology into our class lessons, and with the help of Mrs. Burns, this goal has become a reality. We were so honored to be a part of this project with Mrs. Burns, Ms. Celestri, and Mrs. Richards. We are all proud to present our class representatives as they shared their poetry project with you. Thank you. This is your thing.
Everyone's afraid to touch the mic.
Yeah, not her. Fine.
All right. You just hold it when you speak into it right up to your mouth, okay? You want me to hold it? Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Hatter, Mrs. O'Shea, Mr. Cole, Mrs. Carbone, and our Board of Education, Dr. Roberts and Mr. Abdak. My name is James, and I am here with my fellow classmates from Mrs. Columbos and Mrs. Green's class to share an exciting project that we took part in as a class. We worked in groups to interpret poetry using an STEAM lens. We utilized technology through iPads to create videos that enhanced our study of poetry, incorporating art, music, literature, and empathy.
My name is Hope. Our class has been closely reading the book Love That Duck by Sharon Creech. This book is written in the form of a poem. It is about a boy named Jack. He changes quite a bit in this book. He starts off saying he cannot write poetry, and by the end of the book, he is writing poems that he is proud of. Jack changes because he becomes inspired by the poet Walter Dean Myers. His teacher is also patient, encouraging, and helping him grow.
Hello, I am Susie. As a part of our study of this book, we analyzed many different poems to interpret the mood and tone. As a part of the poetry project, we were put into groups based on the poem we were interested in interpreting. Our groups read and analyzed the poems, discussing what tone and mood we felt the poem expressed. We then created a presentation to share the mood and tone of our poem with our viewers.
My name is Juliet, and I'm going to share the next step in the process. We decided who in our group would do the following jobs: narrator, music director, who with the help of Miss Celestri chose music for the video, art designer, who was assisted by Mrs. Richards to choose images, and videographer, who was assisted by Mrs. Burns. We then practiced our reading our poem in different tones. Then we focused on the tone we decided on as a group. Our group chose the tone annoyed. I was the narrator and had to practice it a few times before I felt that I sounded annoyed enough.
Hello, I'm Amy. The final step in our process was to have our videographer record the narrator reading the poem. Mrs. Burns was very helpful during this step.
We needed to add our images into the video at the right time and incorporate our music as well. We would like to share with you now the video of our work, the Poetry Project. Please observe the artwork that was chosen to highlight the mood of our poems as well as the background music that we used to help set the tone. We thank you for taking the time to let us present to you and we hope you enjoy it.
I think we're going to watch the video.
We are eating dog at a river near a river. Under a maple tree, the dog lies down. His head hung down. Rests his long machine carefully through. Front paws looks up. Trumps with heavy jaws and a slow fall. Blinks rolls on his side. Eyes closes, his eyes sleep. All acting in his loose skin. Dog bone by Valley Wood, performed by Group 2. Under a maple tree, the dog lies down, rolls his limp tongue down, rests his long chin carefully between front paws, looks up alert, chops with heavy jaws. Eyes little flies, blue fingers, sighs, closing eyes, lives on afternoon in his new skin. This poem is The Apple by S.U. Green, performed by Sven. Apple, 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 juicy, 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 juicy. Crunchy, 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 crunchy. A yellow green, yellow, apple, 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 apple. Yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious. Honey word, yuck, yuck. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Honey word, yuck, yuck. Yum, yum, yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious, yum delicious. Apple, 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 apple. Apple, 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 apple. Red yellow green, red yellow green, red yellow green, red yellow green. Crunchy, 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 crunchy. Juicy, 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 juicy apple. This is the apple by S.C. Riggs, orchestra of rolling drums and battle brass was assaulting my ears with the always noise of the street music. Hello, this is Samuel Ramos. I study even November 1st before February 6th. What's this already that I know? His house is in the village now. He will not see me something here too much as with words. My little voice might be clear to stop at our farmhouse neighbor. Between the woods and the frozen lake, the dolphins leave him on the road. He gives his heart a slight shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only understanding is sweet, but he's in need of that. The woods are lovely dark indeed, but I have promises to keep. And wants to go before his feet and wants to go before his feet.
We hope you enjoyed our poetry project. As you saw by our presentation, we interpreted our poems with many different moods, such as annoyed, happy, sad, lazy, and uncertain. This project was both fun and educational. We worked together, shared ideas, and showed empathy within our groups. We have put together a book for you of them, and we have shared with you tonight. We hope you enjoy them. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
As they're handing those out, I'll just do the closing. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Education for their leadership and this opportunity to highlight Crampon's exceptional students and teachers. Thank you to our district administrative team for your support and vision, and thank you to our parents for sharing your wonderful children with us. Over the past several weeks, as Dr. Roberts said, she and I have had the privilege of observing the incredible collaborative work of Ms. Columbos and Ms. Green's fourth grade class, with the interdisciplinary support of Ms. Burns, Ms. Salustri, and Ms. Richards. Through an empathetic lens, their students have explored poetry to unlock their creativity, social emotional intelligence, and academic mastery. Their work showcases that our greatest impact in education may not be any particular lesson, but in the connections and memories we form. Again, thank you to Ms. Columbos, Ms. Green, Ms. Burns, Ms. Salustri, and Ms. Richards for your incredible work. And lastly, and most importantly, thank you to our students for sharing their impressive work with all of us tonight. We are all so proud of you. Thank you.
So I just have a few quick points. First of all, students, you were unbelievable. I was so impressed by the way you were able to stand up there in front of the Board of Education, in front of the adults in the room, and you spoke so articulately. I was so impressed. Nice job, boys and girls. And faculty from Crampon, thank you so much for being here. Your support is why this happens, whether you were a part of the presentation or we're here to support the students and your colleagues. Thank you so much to our Crampon faculty for being here. Mrs. Burns, thank you so much for everything you're doing. You've taken us to new heights. You've opened new doors for our students, for our faculty. I can't thank you enough for everything that you do for our district. With regard to this activity, I was so impressed because this is what eSTEAM is. It's the humanities serving as the foundation of creativity and innovation, and we have music, art, empathy, we have technology, and it's all coming together for this one project. So I cannot thank you enough for taking the vision of eSTEAM and advancing it with our children. And just finally, parents, thank you so much for entrusting us with your children. They're a joy to work with. They're just so wonderful, and we really appreciate what you have given us to work with, because your children truly are gifts to us. So we appreciate your support at home. We appreciate everything you're doing to certainly work collaboratively with the district and to advance the vision of our district. Thank you so much for your wonderful children. And that is what I...
I want to, obviously, our students are wonderful, and we're so appreciative that you came out here. I want to go back to what Mrs. Columbus and Mrs. Green said about modeling the behavior. You model working collaboratively because that's what you want your students to do. And this district has done that they've taken it to the nth degree. Everybody models the behavior that we expect, and we are so proud that you do that, because that's really what our students are going to learn. They're not going to learn from what you tell them. They're going to learn from what you show them. And you show them, when I see all the teachers here who were part of it, that's what you're showing them, is that we all work together for the good of something. And I so appreciate that that's the lesson you give them. So thank you. We done? No, we're good. Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes.
Okay, so we're going to take just a brief 5-minute recess. I know bedtimes are rapidly approaching. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. It's going to be wonderful, but I understand bedtimes are coming up as well. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
We are up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on agenda-related items? Okay. We're going to go right to the superintendent's update, Ron?
Yes. I am just going to first quickly commend our dance company. They completed their evening of dance and their weekend of dance this past weekend. It was a phenomenal performance. Some of us went to go see the Friday night show. I attended the Saturday evening performance. What a wonderful job. We have our swing dance happening on Saturday evening. That's always a wonderful time. I'll be there as well, so I look forward to seeing you attend as well. And at this time, I'm going to turn the report over to Mr. Cole so that we can continue in our series of budget presentations, just to keep the community aware and apprised of all of the components of our operating budget. This week's presentation focuses on debt service and transportation. So at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Dr. Hatter, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is our third presentation in a 7-part budget series. In the following slides, we will discuss the status of the district's debt and transportation services. This chart represents annual total debt service payments, including related interest costs on our outstanding obligations. At this point, the bonds issued in support of the 2006 voter authorization represent the entirety of our capital indebtedness. As the chart indicates, our debt service costs will remain fairly constant for the next 5 years at a level of approximately $3.7 million annually. After that 5-year period, the outstanding debt begins to mature in 6 annual phases, phasing out completely after the 2028-29 school year. We have identified a portion of one of the bonds issued in 2011 that is a candidate for refinancing. We believe we can save taxpayers approximately $125,000 over the remaining 7 years of that bond by undertaking a restructuring. Our capital reserve fund, established by voters in May of 2017, will be the financial vehicle we use to fund capital projects in the near future. As a reminder, the voters approved a capital reserve not to exceed $12 million in total funding for a period not to exceed 10 years. The reserve has 2 significant benefits to taxpayers. It provides a source of funding for building and facility improvements without the need to further raise taxes, and eliminates the interest expense on money that would otherwise be borrowed. In a time of rising interest rates, the fund will be a valuable tool to save taxpayers money. To date, we have funded the reserve to a level of just over $8.8 million. The first of the projects under the reserve structure will be undertaken this summer in 2019. The projects include air conditioning in the high school on the 2nd floor, replacing the primary underground electrical transmission line on the high school middle school campus, replacing the middle school cooling tower, which is a component of the central air conditioning system, replacing floors and ceilings and lights in the Crampon School, and replacing classroom doors, hardware, and wire glazing in the Brookside Elementary School. Here's the line-by-line cost estimate for our budget for debt service. As the bonds issued in support of the 2006 authorization continue to be paid down, we can expect costs to remain fairly constant for the next 5 years and then dramatically declining over the next 6 years. For the 2019-2020 school year, total debt service costs will remain virtually unchanged. Next, we'll move along and discuss transportation. The Yorktown Central School District employs a 4-tier bus system. That is to say, we have 4 distinct cycles to our daily transportation runs. In the mornings, the high school students are transported first, then the middle school students, Crampon School, and last, the 2 K-3 schools, Brookside and Mohansick. In the afternoons, for dismissal, the same cycle takes place. The 4-tier cycle takes just over 3 hours to complete. We will utilize 68 vehicles of varying sizes to provide this service in 2019 and 20. The district provides home-to-school transportation to private schools for Yorktown Central School District residents within the distance requirements established by the State Education Department. We also provide transportation services to students attending special education programs outside of our school district boundaries. Our buses travel more than 500,000 miles each year, consuming more than 50,000 gallons of fuel. Our contracted provider is Baumann & Sons Bus Company. We expect total transportation costs in 2019-20 to decrease by just over $46,000. We anticipate the contractual expense to decline as fewer buses are anticipated in the prior year, a product of a highly efficient routing system overseen by our transportation coordinator, Ms. Patty Sauber. Diesel fuel is expected to increase based on the commodity price alone. Current New York State contract prices for diesel fuel are hovering approximately 60 cents per gallon more expensive than this time last year. The increase in this line reflects that concern for the potentially higher prices. Our next presentation, the fourth in our 7-part series, will take place on February 11th. That evening, we will review the entire general support section of the budget, including facilities, and the employees' benefits section as well. Thank you very much, and we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, Tom, as always. Lisa, do you have questions?
Turned off. I just have a question. You just said that you anticipate a decrease in the cost for the buses next year. Can you go over for me why that is?
Sure. Currently, we are running 72 buses. We had planned to run 72 buses in the 2018-2019 school year. 4 of those buses have been engineered out of the process, and then another 2 were taken out additionally. So we were able to now run at a far lesser cost, and it's got nothing to do with more than the efficiency of some of the routing and some of the consolidation of special education runs that take place outside of the district, where students going to multiple schools are able to ride on the same bus. So we were able to actually maintain 68 total buses plus 2 contingency buses and have the cost come down after increasing the cost for the rate of inflation.
And that still accounts for the maximum number of the children on each of the buses?
It does,
Okay, thank
yes.
you.
Cheryl?
Yeah, along the same lines, when we have snow delays as far as the cycles for the buses, how do these cycles factor into that?
Sure. And Dr. Hatter, do you want to handle it? Well, the 4-tier system is about a 3-hour process. And on a daily basis, I think we estimated the other day that we travel about 3,000 miles a day on the roads with our buses. So we need to look 3 hours into the future on certain snow days to see, on certain days when snow is a potential, to try to determine what the conditions will be. So early in the mornings, somewhere around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, we'll begin communicating. Dr. Hatter and myself will begin communicating with people that we talk to about conditions of the roads, and then we'll speak to one another. Then by 5 o'clock, we're trying to project what the conditions are going to look like at 6:15 in the morning when the very first of our buses get on the road. So if we think there's any kind of a problem with the weather or the road conditions are going to be hazardous in any way, we try to push the start time back to a sufficient point where we can safely get the buses on the road. The problem that we have with weather in particular is that the first inch of precipitation on a road in the form of snow or ice is the most dangerous because they can't be plowed until there's about 2 inches on the road. And so those are the key factors. Do you think I left anything out there, Dr. Hatter?
No, I think just the only thing I would add is that, so it's 3 hours per run. And when you take the AM and the PM run, our buses are on the road for about 6 hours a day. So that's something that goes into our calculus when determining a delay, an early release, or a closure. So I just wanted to add to that.
Yes.
Rashmi?
So Tom, I have a question on the debt service payments. So it seems like in just a few years, the payments will start to decline dramatically. So what will be the impact of that on our budget when that happens?
Well, when that happens, the cost will be removed from the budget. So when we see, let's put it this way, we have a cost, we have an associated revenue also that offsets a portion of it that comes back from the state in the form of state aid. So roughly 50 cents on the dollar, if you were to look at it, comes back in state aid. So if our budget declines by $1 million because a piece of the debt matures, that piece will come out of the budget, and there'll be a reduction of the $1 million on the cost side. But we'll also lose about $500,000 in the state aid as well. So there'd be a net savings to the tax levy of about $500,000. In those years where you see that debt decline, there's a significant drop-off. And it's an opportunity, based on some of the things we've been discussing recently about reconfiguring schools and enrollment population explosions that are possible to happen. Those costs may be able to be slotted into those areas if they fall in line with the debt maturities.
Thank you.
Mike?
Tom, since you mentioned, potential construction, and we've just started now projects under the Capital Reserve Fund, can you maybe just remind the community what the real cost savings and benefits are of utilizing the Capital Reserve Fund over bond issues?
So the typical construction project is aided or amortized also over a 15-year period. The capital reserve that we're undertaking that the voters authorized for us is a $12 million total funding. $12 million over a 15-year period at an interest rate of somewhere between 3 and 3.5%. It would have been an interest cost to us somewhere between $2.5 and $3.5 million. So by utilizing the cash reserve, we'll save taxpayers probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million in otherwise expended interest expense. Now, the issue for us is that this is an environment of rising interest rates for the most part, and borrowed money would become more and more expensive. So it's very fortuitous that we're employing this vehicle now. It makes it highly more efficient for our budget.
Tom, on the transportation side, the diesel fuel, you're projecting about $25,000
Yes.
increase to the budget. We've had a lot of cold weather, typically. Looking out that far forward, I guess really my question is being diesel's a commodity, what do we do to protect ourselves from those rising costs, and is it enough?
Well, I think it is, because initially the budget was predicated on the current environment that we have, where we had budgeted 72 buses. So we have a built-in contingency in there. I'll be quite frank, there's about $15,000 in there, which is a built-in contingency, because we have no idea where the commodity price will go. There's also, in the cold weather months, there's the cost of the additives that have to be added to the diesel fuel to make it effectively to be used in that weather. We think we have it all captured, and I'm comfortable with where that number is.
Tom, you mentioned that we're going to be, and it's on the agenda tonight, we're going to be refinancing the last bond. Can you explain, we've done this in the past, can you explain the benefits for doing it and how much we've saved over the years by going this route?
Sure. So the 2006 bond authorization, there were several different borrowings within that $37 million project. We're looking to refinance a bond issued in 2011, which had, the rates are fixed, but they change over time. So it's not like they're a variable rate that are going to change with the Fed rate or anything of that nature. And the back half of this bond, which is the next 7 years, the rate spikes from about 3% to over 5%. There's an opportunity for us to slot in there and refinance that last 7-year portion and save approximately, in our estimation, $125,000 over the remaining life of the bond, the next 7 years. This is something we've typically done over the last 20 years, and if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say the savings have been in the millions by refinancing some of the very high interest rates. We took advantage of the decline in interest rates that took place after 2008 to refinance the prior bond that was from 2001. And we did take advantage of some of the earlier offerings we did in from the 2006 bond. So it's something we do routinely, and we've saved quite a bit of money.
And one of the reasons we're able to do that is we're able to maintain such a good Standard & Poor's rating, correct? So that allows us to be able to slide in there when the opportunity is right?
Yes. Last time we had our rating reviewed, our credit rating actually increased. Our reserves are healthy. You'll see that in one of the upcoming presentations. They remain robust, and they remain the main reason why credit rating agencies find us a very good credit risk.
Terrific. Lisa, anything else?
Nope,
Carol?
thank you. I'm good.
Rashmi?
Nope.
Mike? Pete?
Nope.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, what are we up to? of a resolution. A board resolution, be it resolved that the employee number 2094 be placed on paid administrative leave effective February 5th, 2019, and will remain on paid leave pending medical clearance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have personnel. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion that the following be approved. We have under certified personnel an unpaid leave of absence, and under classified personnel, we have additions to our substitute list.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hang on a second. Business, the bond resolution. This is a motion to approve the refunding bond resolution of the Yorktown Central School District adopted February 4th, 2019, authorizing the refunding of certain outstanding serial bonds of said district, stating the plan of refunding, appropriating an amount not to exceed $3.5 million, therefore authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $3.5 million refunding serial bonds of the district to refund its said appropriation and making certain no other determinations, all relatives thereto. A complete copy of the refunding bond resolution summarized above shall be available for public inspection during normal business hours at the office of the district clerk, 2725 Crom Pond Road.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was a lot of legalese. ERS. Whereas the Board of Education has previously established an employee retirement system reserve fund for the purpose of financing retirement system contributions to the New York State and local employees' retirement system, and wishes to appropriate funds from the ERS reserve to pay for such costs, be it resolved that the board hereby appropriates and makes transfers from the ERS reserve fund to the general fund in the aggregate amount of $500,000 for the payment of invoices from New York State ERS for the 18-19 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sharp reservation. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education authorizes the board president to sign the hold harmless agreement with the Fresh Air Fund Sharp Reservation for Brookside Grade 3 students for a March 25th, 26th, 2019 trip.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Placements. Can I have a motion to arrange the following placements as of February 4th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following gifts, grants, and donations. At Brookside, $754 from the Brookside PTA for a kindergarten class to the trip to the Tarrytown Music Hall, $462 from the Brookside PTA for a second grade class trip to the Hudson River Museum. At Mohansick, $2,500 from the Mohansick PTA for an author-illustrator visit from Sophie Blackall, $1,500 from the Mohansick PTA for Story Pirates Assembly Idea Storms for the third grade, and $2,500 from the Mohansick PTA for Story Pirates Assembly Greatest Hits for all students. At the Mildred E. Strang Middle School, $2,000 from the middle school PTA for a seventh grade assembly with youth empowerment speaker Sean Dirk. And at Yorktown High School, $8 for Your Cause LLC trustee for New York Life Employee Match Program.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Board comment. Pete? Mike?
I just think it was a really eye-opening example of e-STEAM, in practice, which I thought was really neat. So thank you for that. Very helpful.
Freshman?
No, same thing. I just want to say great job by Crom Pond students and the staff.
Cheryl?
Yeah, ditto everyone else's comments. I just think it was so nice to see the children presenting poetry. I know we're so entrenched in informational text, but it's such a nice, swing away from that. I think that that's embedded in empathy, that the emotions created by poetry and creative writing are really at the basis and foundation of empathy. So it was really a great presentation.
Lisa?
Ditto.
Okay, yeah, it was great. I mean, I'm just loving where e-STEAM is going, and it's not going to build robots all the time. It's going to do everything, and it is really wonderful. Ron, Lisa, Tom, anything? All right, public comment? Anybody wishing to speak? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good night, guys.